guys, welcome to Nine Links. This is your host Alex. Today I'm going to repot my Cymbidium Ruby Chen, and if you can see, the flowers are actually wilting, and I probably could give it about another month or so, but I figure right now its temperature is still pretty good to go ahead and give it a repot. I was, initially thought maybe do it in the early spring, but since I checked the pot, it's very root bound, and plus I have plenty of time on my hand, and my basement temperature is not as cold right now, so give it repots and let it recover in about a few weeks, and they should be ready to go. So anyway, repot, as you can see, I usually do the repotting on that table right there, but due to this year I have most of my plants are getting bigger, and they take up a lot more space than I initially thought. So kind of improvise a little bit, just using one of the big containers here and just do on top of the container. Another good thing about doing top of the container is that whatever dirt and stuff left on top of the lid, I can just go put it outside and rinse it off. Easy cleaning. That's one thing about repotting, is it can get really messy. So make sure you prepare ahead. So we have the old pot right there with the the plants in there, and the new pot that I bought right there. I could have bought a little bit smaller, but around this time of year, let me get it out. Around this time of year, you don't get many choices, because some places they don't get in any more plant containers. I mean, come on, winter. So anyway, you got trash there already, and some rainwater, and of course New Zealand sphagnum moss. I'm going to use the entire slab. I think it's going to be a lot, but for this size of container, should work pretty good. And also, I got some potato cuttings, that very small piece, very thin. I'm going to use it part of the potting mix. It has a more organic fertilizer over the winter time, so that way I don't have to fertilize the Cymbidiums over the winter time. And plus, most of the plants, you don't need to fertilize over the winter time, unless the plant is actively growing, like my sweet olive, which they're doing fine over there by the window. As you can see, new leaves coming up. But anyway, going back here. Okay, now, first thing I'm going to do for Cymbidium repot is that I'm going to cut all the flower stalks off. Yeah, I'm going to cut all the flowers off. First step, cut the flowers off, the stalks off, and then second step, take it out. Probably trim some of these wood sorrels growing up there, and then finally, before I do that, I'm going to get my get the sphagnum moss and everything soaked, get all the potting mix ready, and then when I take them out and do all the tidy up, cutting the wood sorrels, and if I'm going to double check if there are any root rots down there. If there are bad roots, I'm going to cut them off. It's a perfect time to do that, and then put in a new pot. Okay, and let's start. Okay guys, as you can see, the flower stalk's been cut off, and they're right there in the trash. Well, the other two, it looks pretty good. I might put it in a glass cup in the living room. But anyway, now just for the container, just tilt on the side, and I'm going to just hold on to the top like this. Like this, and then slowly shaking it and get it out. Okay guys, I think this one, it's very heavily pot bound. Can't get it out. It's got stuck really hard in there. So I have two other methods to get it out. One is I have a metal sheet that I can stick it in. It's like a very thin metal sheet, long metal sheets. I can stick it in on the side and then just go around it. Try to scrap it out, but that I do not want to do that, because that will probably most likely injure the roots. We're repotting it. We're going to give it a shock already, and I mean, you could do it, but it won't kill your plant, but it will give it a lot longer recovery time for this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get a hammer and break this, because I'm not going to use this whole pot anyway. I'm going to break it. Okay, breaking it should be pretty easy. I already made a crack right there. You just a slight tab, See, just slight tap, and because it's root bounded already, there's been a force inside, so you want to push it open. So now after you tap it a couple times, it's splitting open. So I'm getting a few more tag, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Alrighty, we got the bottom portion knocked off. As you can see, these roots are very healthy. As you can see, there's not much potting mix left. You can see that the root balls is huge, and it's all very healthy. No, so far I don't see any rots here. All white and healthy. All right, continue. All right. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. That it's very root bound. No wonder it gave out 4 flower stalks. And guys, if this is a regular plant, you're way overdue for a repot. But this is Cymbidium, which is understandable. And also, the big roots are from Cymbidiums. You know what? Let me get some water on there. Just here. Let me get some sphagnum moss. Just keep them wet because I exposed to the air. You don't have to, but I just want to play safe. These are sphagnum moss I soaked earlier. Just keep them wet on the side. Now, you can probably see these little roots. These are probably from a wood sorrel. These little guys out here, their roots, they extend down pretty far down too, as you can see. But anyway, so far, maybe a little bit black right here, a little bit small rotting areas, which is fine. All right, now let's get this part knocked off too, and we're ready to repot. Okay, so we just want to recap real quick. We took the pot off the Cymbidium. As you can see, it's very, very root bound, like I said earlier. And also, yeah, guys, be careful when you do take my method of getting the hammer and break the pot. That's another thing about buying a cheap pot. Cheap, effective, efficient terracotta pots. It's only costs a little bit. You can break it off. See, the thing I talked about earlier, if I were to insert some kind of metal to scrap, like when the pot got stuck, try to scrap them on the side. If I were to go through like that, all these roots on the outside will get damaged, and that's not good. And it will take them a lot longer time to recover. Now look at this. This is a perfect example of how Cymbidium roots should be if you want them to grow. All right, so we're gonna pot it into a bigger pots, which is this one. This one right here. And what it will do is that when you pot it in there, let me see if I can lift this. It's pretty heavy by itself. I don't want to drag the, it should be fine. So if we were to put it in here, as you can see, we have a little bit more room on the side for it to grow. So most likely, if we put it in here, it will be this much, and the roots will start to grow outward to the new space. And then once it fills up again, it probably will flower again. Or it's already root bounded, pretty good amount of roots. It will bloom, but it will not bloom as much. But when it comes heavily root bounded, that's when Cymbidiums bloom a lot. So when you see like one of those flower shows and stuff, and they have a Cymbidiums outside and they have a lot of flowers growing, I can bet you 100% if you break the pot, you will see the roots is very heavily bounded. For this plant, like I say on my previous video on Cymbidiums, I could just let it go for 1 more year, which I decided not to. Since I have the time, I have the pots, I can always put in a big pot, let it grow more leaves, and then a little bit more flowers. Another thing about Cymbidium's art is that the leaf itself is a form of art. It's clean, it's green, and the leaves goes complement with the flowers. So you don't say, I have a few leaves, I have a lot of flowers. No, it doesn't look good that way. So you have a lot of leaves and just flower in the middle. That's how it usually works. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna put potting mix in there. Okay, when taking out the sphagnum moss that soaks in the water, I typically, when I for regular plants, I don't squeeze out the water that much. But for Cymbidiums, I'm gonna keep it as dry as possible. Not like 100% dry, it's more like moist. So this will come up and goes on the bottom to keep the other potting mix from falling out. Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and apply the bottom layer, and then I'm gonna set the Cymbidium on top. Okay guys, as you can see, I actually put the potatoes underneath it. This the bottom layer is finished. Now earlier I said I don't usually fertilize Cymbidiums or any other plants that don't grow much in the winter time. I decided to go ahead and put a little bit, not this amount, a very light amount in there. Reason being is this is slow release fertilizer, and you have to keep in mind. You have to keep in mind that the sphagnum moss has 0 nutrients. All it does is retain water. So there's no fertilizer in there besides the potato, and add some slow release fertilizer. Just give it a little new potting aftershock, little boost. Okay, so to continue. Okay, guys. One thing is that remember what I'm doing right now for this repot is that I'm potting it up. It means I give it a bigger container. I'm not going to disturb the roots. For some videos, you probably see other people do what they do is when they take the Cymbidium out, they rinse the roots, take the roots out, clean the basically untangle all the roots, and then putting it into a new pot. I don't do that. The way they do it, it might be right too, but the reason I don't do it is all my roots are healthy, and I'm trying to give it as less shock as possible. So this is going to be better. Okay, guys. I decided to add a little bit more of a miracle. This last bag actually have some left that I pre-mixed last time with the vermiculite, and so it was miracle mix plus vermiculite, and then I put the base as sphagnum moss with some Osmocote slow release, and then potatoes, and then on the side, the medium range, I use the potting mix, miracle potting mix mixed with vermiculite. As you can see, I haven't shaken it down yet, poke it down. So it'll be about, so the sphagnum moss is right about this much, and then from here on out, I use the potting mix, miracle potting mix, plus vermiculite, and these will provide a little bit of nutrients. And on here, a little bit taller right there, I'm gonna add potato surrounding it, and then finally seal the top off with sphagnum moss. Okay, as you can see, I shake it down a little bit, and the potatoes on all the way around, and now we're gonna seal it off with the top off with sphagnum moss. All right, all done, and let me clean up the area real quick, and then I'll show you the pots around and about watering as well. Okay, guys, this is the final result of the whole repotting. As you can see, the side is filled with sphagnum moss. Let me go closer. With sphagnum moss all around, and I created a little slight downward from the middle. You can see if you look at like this, you can see it's a little slanted upward. Now with Cymbidiums, it's best. The reason being is that when you water, you tend to water on the outside. Remember that water outside. You can probably see earlier when I broke the pot, all the roots are actually hanging out outside, and the primary reason we don't want to water water directly in the middle is that these are pseudobulbs. When you have water going in there, and if not dried fast enough, it will cause rots in there, and that's very important. That's like the energy center of the whole Cymbidium. If it's gone down bad, the whole plant's gonna die. Whole Cymbidium gonna die. So the root's gonna come out by creating a little slanted upward. When you water on the side, the water will rinse on come down to the edges. So always keep the edges wet, and that's how we're gonna water Cymbidium. And today after repot, I'm probably not like other plants. When I repot other plants, I water heavily, initial water, and then let the water drains out, and then probably won't water again until a week or 2 weeks later, depends on the condition. But for Cymbidiums, I'm just going to give a little bit water on the side or all around, because remember, they're not really active growing on currently autumn, and then winter is even slow down even more. So you don't want to give way too much water, because it's this new potting mix and they absorb water a lot. So there's going to be a huge water retention in there, which is going to cause root rots. So I'm going to give a little water. It will moisten it out and give it a environment. It's not dry, but also it's not soggy wet. And another thing I like about these terracotta pot is that when you have water at one place, it'll basically, it's very porous, so it basically delivers the water to the other place as well. So the container itself acts as a breathing, could I say, reserved for water. Okay. Anyway, all right, that's it for today. Just a repot on Cymbidium Ruby Chen. If you have questions, just please post it below, and thank you for watching. Okay.